Hello, people. This week I have on Heather Mason, who is a founding member of, I don't know how you say it, I guess COSBAR, aka Canadian Women's Sex-Based Rights, and on the board of directors for Strength and Sisterhood. She's a former incarcerated woman at the Grand Valley Institution for Women in Ontario. After overcoming drug addiction, she now advocates for women in the justice system. She focuses on the failure of the prison system to treat addictions and other mental health issues, as well as the issues of men self-identifying into women's prisons. So thank you so much for coming on. It's an honor, and I don't even know where to start.
Thank you for having me on.
Totally. God bless you for what you do. What do you want to start with? I kind of want us to go back and talk about your addiction, if you're comfortable with that.
Yeah. So I actually started smoking cigarettes and weed when I was 12, 13. And then it kind of escalated. I partied a lot. I did coke and ecstasy, whatnot. And then when I was 19, I started dating a guy that was 9 years older than me. And he was into oxys. And I'd had Percocets before because I got my wisdom teeth out and been in a car accident. So I'd taken them and I knew I liked them.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up trying the oxys and I got addicted to them. And I was on methadone, off methadone, on methadone. And then I started smoking fentanyl patches and it was just downhill after that. They're a lot stronger than the oxys. So that's when I started getting in trouble with the law. So I ended up, my last time I was arrested was May 2017. So that's the last time I've touched opiates.
Wow. Congrats on, I guess, being sober. It's interesting that fentanyl was the one thing that was different than the rest from what I'm hearing you say. It just, I don't know. Are you able to describe it at all? I'm just curious.
Well, it's a downer and it puts you on the nod a lot. A lot of people don't like that feeling, but I loved it. It was more of a body buzz, but it was a lot stronger than everything else that I was doing. But I was also getting into crystal meth because it's really cheap and everyone does it. So I never had to buy it, but everyone would come over with it. So I would smoke it. So I was doing a lot of crystal meth back then as well.
Wow. Well, go ahead.
I would do anything really. When I got arrested, I was doing crack, cocaine, Molly, Xanax, lorazepam, fentanyl patches, crystal meth. I was mixing everything I possibly could.
Wow.
I didn't even care if I died. I was hoping that I would get so high, fall asleep and never wake up. That's the mental state that I was in at the time.
Wow. I don't want to pry, and obviously you talk about whatever you're comfortable talking about. Do you know now what that numbing was caused from, or what made you want to numb away?
Yeah, so I had stuff that happened in my childhood. I was raised in an abusive home. Dad was an alcoholic and left, so I had abandonment issues. Mom felt guilty, turned to drug use, and my house was chaotic. There were junkies living on my couch, and I'd have to wake up early in the morning and pick up all their needles and drugs and get my sisters up for school. So there was a lot of resentment because I was being treated like an adult, right?
How old were you? When all that started, I guess from your earliest memory, maybe, or?
So there was abuse and all of that stuff in the home up until I was in grade 5. And then about grade 6, my mom was really into the drugs. So that's when I had to start parenting my younger sisters. Wow. And I was very resentful having all these adult responsibilities and then having my mom try to ground me. Who do you think you are?
Yeah, you're a child. I think sounds like your childhood was stolen from you, really.
Yeah, I didn't have much of a childhood at all. It was always mature Heather with a head on her shoulders. So there's a lot of abandonment issues. There was a lot of resentment. And then I obviously got connected with older guys that were into drugs, and it wasn't good.
Yeah, I'm sure your situation is not uncommon, especially with the older men preying on high school girls, because I know that power dynamic. It's pretty gross. I'm sorry you went through all that, but I can tell you're a fighter, and it's one of those things where it seems like people go through difficult things like that. Difficult sounds like it's pretty light saying like that. To then set you up for what you do in the future. At the time, I'm sure it's horrible, but then look at what you're doing now. You sent me some links, and I mean, I guess, when were you incarcerated? What year was that? And how long?
So I got in trouble as a teenager. I got an assault causing bodily harm, but I ended up with a peace bond. So that was like my first instance with the law. But then I got charged when I was 26, and then I got arrested, charged, like 5 times from 2014 to 2017.
Mhm.
And then in 2017 is when I actually went to prison.
Wow. For how long?
I got a 3-year sentence. I did half in provincial, and then I did half in federal. And then I got out and I went to treatment in North Bay for 3 months. And then I was at the halfway house in Toronto for 4 months.
So were you experiencing any men pretending to be women at that time?
Yeah, I first experienced it in 2015 in provincial jail, but they were still keeping them separated from us. And then when I went to federal, they had some that had surgery there, but then they were starting to transfer in ones who hadn't had surgery. And then I got out and I was in a halfway house with one as well.
God almighty. I mean, it's horrifying. I've read some of those women in prison stories, images. I want to read one. It was the last one because it was pretty, covered kind of a lot. This is from the Gender Dissent. I guess is this a website that you're setting up currently?
No, these are just women I know. They started Gender Dissent, and then they did this for me.
Nice. Well, I mean, not nice, obviously, but so it's a quote from a incarcerated woman in Canada. It's sad that CSC. What is CSC again?
Correctional Service of Canada.
Okay, thank you. Feel they need to protect the rights of transgender women, air quotes, at the cost of putting actual women at risk. I was forced to live in a unit with this self-proclaimed transgender. I don't say it like that out of disrespect or transphobia. I'm a lover of and member of the LGBTQI community and am friends with many trans people. However, the lack of protocols CSC has in place allows any man that proclaims trans status to be transferred to a women's prison to do their time. One such individual told me themselves that their presence at GVI was a coup and they were playing the system. I witnessed them have sexual relations with 8 different women I was aware of and caused such emotional chaos between some of the women. This person thought it was a game and treated the women in the prison as toys to be played with. This should never be a situation women are stuck dealing with. They are already in a vulnerable and in a damaged situation. Now we have to worry about being preyed upon by men who have no care for our emotional well-being. Prior to my release, this individual was charged with sexual assault and harassment of a woman in our living unit. This never should have happened. It was just one event of many he was guilty of. He threw his own shit and piss at a woman outside his living unit one day because she called him a rat. Women don't do things like that to each other, and we never have. I have done over 20 years in jail and never seen anything quite like the things this individual did and claimed to be a woman. No woman should be subjected to that kind of living environment. And I can't say I'm surprised even remotely that you throw a man in, an all women's facility and there's that just chaos that stirs up. Obviously the harassment and sexual relations is, it's just so obvious to me. It's madness. And it's also says a lot that they would rather protect men and not be called like a bigot or a transphobe than protect the actual women. And one of the other ones said, the woman that was harassed or assaulted was moved out of that area. And yet the man just stays there. It's just insane. It's just, people just, I don't know. It's upsetting, obviously. So when you came across men pretending to be women, was there any, how did that person act towards you?
So I was in with one named Judy, and he used to always say that he was a woman from the waist down and a man from the waist up. So he was in for 40 years. and then got out for a year and got a sex change, and then it came into the women's prison. And he sexually harassed a lot of us. He used to say he'd eat Doritos off our ass or ask us to walk by again so he could look at us. So I was lucky and I got out before the rest of them were transferred in.
Yeah.
And I wasn't even going to talk about it or say anything because like just the way that we are conditioned and told that we have to call them she, her, and it's a woman.
In prison?
And we can't say, yeah.
By the prison staff?
Yeah, or else you're bullying or you're being hateful or.
Oh my Lord. Is this like, I guess once you call it a man, that's insane. I didn't know that. I guess I didn't realize that they were complying and going along with the whole progressive narrative, even in prison, like calling it hate speech or whatever. Did they have like classes to like inform everyone that we don't do that? Or was it an individual like slap on the hand?
Well, it kind of it evolved, right? Like that was one of the first things that I was told when I came in was about Judy and that I had to refer to him as a woman. And even when my friends call me from prison and they tell me, because like that's how I get a lot of my information is people in prison, both men and women. And they call them she and her. And I'm like, you mean him? You mean him?
Wow. Obviously, if you're going to be conditioned and it's like psychological warfare. It's so upsetting. You know, women are so vulnerable. I guess people are so heartless about people in prison in general. Like, oh, you deserve it. Or you want us to have sympathy for people that have done this and this and this. I'm like, they're still human. Like, I don't know. It's bananas. It's upsetting beyond belief. So, go ahead.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
People have this like painted picture of who's in prison. Like they seem to think it's all like these monsters, but what they don't understand is like 80% of women that are in prison are there for like drug addiction or navigating poverty and abuse. Like they're not, I believe it's like 20% of the women's population are lifers. It might even be less than that. So like you have 80% that aren't what you are thinking everyone in prison is like. And that's the problem.
Of course. Oh, let's see. So you also talked about, or I saw something that you mentioned that the prisons obviously don't do anything, now back to the addiction combo, to treat addictions at all. Like, so, I mean, I guess you just come into prison and people, I guess that's their probably first day coming down or off of whatever it is they're addicted to. So they just literally do nothing. How does that process look?
So at first you would go to provincial jail. That's remand, and that's where you go if your sentence is less than 2 years. So each jail operates differently. They're starting to implement withdrawal management style procedures. But one of the issues with COVID was what they were doing was isolating people for 2 weeks. So they're putting them in segregation like cells, right? Solitary confinement, where they're withdrawing from street drugs and also in isolation and scared that they have COVID. So August, not the August that just passed, but the August prior, my son's father was actually one of the prisoners who hung himself. So, yeah.
Horrifying. It's so insane.
Like, I know. And then 4 months later, my friend from public school hung himself in the exact same jail.
Wow. Shocking. I mean, it's like this whole COVID thing is a whole nother conversation of itself. Like, what? They put them in solitary confinement because they think they have? I don't even know. So sad.
Yeah, because they don't want to put them on range and potentially infect the rest of the people on the range. So they're separating them, right? When I first started going to jail, they didn't help with withdrawals. You were on your own. They wouldn't give you sleep meds. They wouldn't give you like clonidine to lower your blood pressure. They wouldn't let you get on methadone. And then if you were like, say you were vomiting, you had to keep your vomit in the toilet to show the guards so that they would give you gravel. Like gravel? That's how crazy. Yeah.
Well, what's the gravel thing? What's that?
For nausea.
What do you mean? Is it a term called gravel? Like, or is it literally gravel?
It's a medication. that they give
Oh,
for nausea.
wow. So you have to keep it in the toilet in order to get that? Is that what you're saying? Is that what you said?
Yeah. Yeah, that's how they treat you in jail. Like
Yeah,
you're
the animal.
expected to be lying at all times and just trying to get medication. So some of the jails started implementing programs like the new Windsor jail. It's not new
Mm-hmm.
anymore,
Mm.
but they will put you on methadone. So if you come in and you're not on methadone, they won't let you withdraw forever. They'll
Mm-hmm.
let you see the doctor and put you on methadone.
And they did that within the what, last year or something?
They were doing it when I was there in 2017.
Okay. I wonder, did they start helping people in general, and then they stopped doing it, or has it always been a thing that they just don't care about that? Like, I
They're
don't know
starting
the
to get
history.
better,
Hmm.
but they really don't care. Like healthcare is a really big problem in both provincial and federal.
Hmm.
Um, and provincial, like you don't always have healthcare. Like they go home at like 11 at night and then there's nobody there till like 6 a.m., right?
Hmm.
So if you need anything, you're kind of shit out of luck.
Wow, really helping them out, like a kick. There's obviously, it's like, it's crazy. You would think you would want to help these people out in some way, shape, or form so they don't wind up back in the system. But then there are things that, I mean, sounds like pretty much leads you to want to kill yourself because you're not getting any help. Uh, it
And
sounds,
then
it's,
also with when you go, so say you're in provincial and they put you on all these medications. So an example, when I was in provincial, I wanted to get off methadone because I
mm-hmm,
did not want to be on it when I got out of jail. So
mm-hmm,
I started tapering off and they put me on clonidine for excessive sweating.
mm-hmm,
They put me on Seroquel for sleeping,
mm-hmm,
and then they gave me Lyrica for pain.
hmm.
And then when I transferred to federal, I got there Friday at like 7 at night and they're like, there's no health care and we don't prescribe the medication that you're on, so we can't give it to you. And I was like, what do you mean? You have my blister packs. Let me have my medication. They're like, no, we don't prescribe that here. So they made me withdraw off my medication all weekend. And then I talked to healthcare and they're like, yeah, no, we don't prescribe those here because of risk of abuse. So they let me go without any medication at all.
So what kind of healthcare? It said you said healthcare. I'm like, well, what kind of healthcare do they even remotely have? Like,
Like a doctor. It's honestly, it's not very good healthcare at all.
yeah.
And like if you want extras, then you have to pay for it, like especially with the dentist. So then you're really dependent on your family, like your mom, your
Mm-hmm.
dad, etc., because you don't get benefits or anything.
Ay, ay, ay. Can't say I'm surprised, but I'm sad. Um, so you talk to women in prison, and I mean, I don't even know. I mean, obviously, I read that one little feedback comment, but it sounds like they're just, doing nothing. I mean, I guess it's just summarize what I already said. They're just two of the guards, and the whole system is going to comply, and even down to the pronouns. Um, I just can't imagine how helpless these women feel. Like, I don't know. I don't know like how you can even comment on that because I mean, well, I don't know if you want to talk about the stories that the women say to you and how helpless you must feel when they're like
Yeah.
crying out.
So I started talking to women in June 2019 because I actually won a scholarship to the Canadian Association of Elizabeth Fry Society's national conference.
Mm,
And they are the only national organization that advocates for federally sentenced women.
mm-hmm,
And when I was there, there's a ton of lived experience. So women
mm,
either on parole, just off parole. And anyways, CAFES passed their inclusion policy. And one of the women who was incarcerated got up and spoke about how a prolific serial pedophile groomed her, sexually harassed her, stood outside the bathroom door asking if she was on her period. It really triggered her because of her history. And all the staff was like, I'm concerned with the transphobia in this room, and you don't need a vagina to be a woman. And she left crying. And all of us women were like, what is going on? So I started talking to the women that were there, but then I also started reaching out to women that I had been incarcerated with, and it kind
mm-hmm,
of just ballooned. None of
mm-hmm,
the women had anyone to talk to. They have
mm-hmm,
been reporting, but all the organizations are captured or they don't want to speak up because they're afraid of being silenced, fired, doxxed, etc. Right?
Yep. Yeah.
So I really started speaking to a lot of the women, and they were really happy that I was a voice for them. And then this past summer, I did a survey that I sent around, and I had women with lived experience contact other women that they knew. And I was able to connect with like 80 women in Canada, which was pretty cool. And that's where I got a lot of those comments for those infographics that you just read from.
Yeah.
Because their comments came with the survey.
Do they have access to the internet, or was this a phone call thing, or what? How did you even conduct that?
So they're from a lot of women who are on parole, living in halfway houses, just released. And also I did do phone calls inside. So I won't talk about how I did it because you're not supposed to do it. But I filled out the survey for them when they gave me the answers over the phone.
Gotcha. Is there any repercussions or putting someone in timeout or something if they do use those wrong pronouns? Really? I mean, so if say that a woman incarcerated says this man is a man, like, do they get, I don't know, whatever? Does anything happen to them? Like, is there any?
Yeah, they'll get reprimanded or get a warning. And if it continues, then yeah, they could be charged. So you know what happens is, and this happened. So Madeline Harks, legal name is Matthew Harks, prolific serial pedophile, has like over 60 offenses and like 200 victims or something. I might have did that backwards. Anyways, he sexually assaulted an Indigenous woman in the bathroom at Grand Valley. And the women who lived with him didn't want him back in the house. So they locked the door and wouldn't let him in the house. And he went to the guards, and the guards came and said, if you don't let her in the house, we're going to put bullying in your paperwork. And when you go for parole, that's going to impact it. So that's what they're doing. Or they'll target you. And by targeting you, that means that they'll search you. And then they'll charge you with contraband. And contraband is anything that is not on your property list. So you could be charged with having a CD. Say you borrowed your neighbor's hair straightener and you were straightening your hair and they came through. That's a charge. So now you have contraband charges. And when you go for parole, they see all these charges and they say, well, you have poor institutional behavior, so we're not granting you parole.
Oh my God, it's insane. And it's just that obviousness of, you know, oh, this doesn't really happen. And, oh, men could never abuse this system. And, you know, like, I mean, it could be so sick that men would intentionally, I don't know, break the law and then identify as a woman and then be housed with women. It sounds like a field day for sex freak, whatever, just disgusting perv. Like, it sounds like heaven. Like, why would they not abuse the system? Of course they would. And I mean, Lord, it's...
Well, there's no consequence, right? Like, it could be understandable if there was a consequence for lying about being a woman, but there isn't, because a woman is anyone who identifies as one. There is no objective test to who is trans and who is not. And by doing so, you're discriminating against their gender identity, right? So there's no objective test. There's no consequence for faking it. So like that thing that you read off, the comment from the woman, she's referring to Steve Mellenbacher. Well, Steve is like a third-time federal offender. He's been in and out of men's prisons for 2 decades. And on one of his releases, he got revoked and he started identifying as a woman and went by the name Sam. He started taking hormones and grew his hair long. Then when he got to the woman's prison, he stopped taking his hormones. He sells them to either other trans that are in there or sells them to the women because they make their boobs grow. So, yes. And he said he didn't like the hormones because they made his dick not work. So, and there's no way for the guards to be like, okay, well, you're not taking your hormones now, you need to leave, because they're discriminating against him. So what they do is they just transfer them from women's prison to women's prison to women's prison, and they continue with the behavior that and the whole reason why they were transferred. So Steve went from Fraser Valley in BC to Edmonton in Alberta, and then Grand Valley in Ontario. And he had the same behavior every single time. And nothing happened, and now he's out and he's on charges for sexual assault, but he's living as a man again. He's Steve again because he played the system.
Yeah, of course.
And the other thing is that corrections has an exemption clause in their policy, right? So 50% of the transfer requests to women's prisons were from sex offenders. Obviously, they were denied because there's an exemption clause, right? And some of the things they look at are like the mother-child program, suitable programming, the security of the facility. And advocates are demanding that transfers happen with no exception. So they want the exemption clause removed. They think that corrections has too much power in being able to decide or deny transfers. They don't want stats to be collected on sex, which means there will be no stats, like true stats, to show male violence, to show sexual assaults, to show how many males are in women's prisons. It's absolutely crazy that anyone could even advocate for this. So essentially, women's prisons will be gone, and it'll just be mixed sex and then men's.
I know, which is what is happening everywhere. Bathrooms and, I mean, you name it. It's, I don't know, I'm just like repeating myself at this point. I had a question, but I forgot. Wild. Let's see here. Where to open one of the links that you sent. So how did that protest go that you did last year? What was it, on Halloween?
So we actually did 11 protests last year. We started in March. We had a bunch of GVI, and then we actually did a Canada-wide protest in September. And we had a protest in BC, Alberta, 2 in Ontario, 1 in Quebec, and 1 in Nova Scotia. And then we did a Capitol Party protest on the day before Halloween, and we all wore costumes, and it was so much fun.
Sounds like it. Did you get any hatred or anyone shouting at you?
One guy told us to go home, but other than that,
we got a lot of, interesting. Yeah, go
got
figure.
A lot of honks.
Yeah. I mean, these people usually are just keyboard warriors and the ultimate protected class. It's I mean, these people can literally get away with murder and like the worst offenses because people are terrified to be called words that aren't, it's not even the truth. People are terrified of untruths being said about them. This whole system is built for abuse. I mean, I don't even know how it's reversible at this point, but I don't even know. How do you remain positive?
I know it gets me down sometimes, but like there seems to be a lot more people finally realizing what's going on. Because part of the trans activists they use is their language to confuse people. So they talk about trans women and then people think that these are males who have breast implants and who have a neo vagina and take hormones, but that's not the case. Like those males have been incarcerated with us since at least 1982. So once the public's aware that a trans woman is in fact any male who identifies as one, they're kind of like, whoa, okay, I didn't know that's what we were talking about.
Yeah. Or they think it's a woman because you're using the word woman, go figure. Like if people that are new to the subject, I've seen time and again, I can tell that they're talking about a woman pretending to be a man. And I'm like, it's just this whole language is... the whole language game is built to confuse anyone. So then you wind up just being confused and being like, I don't even know what's going on, whatever. Corrupt reality so they can get away with whatever the hell they want.
Yeah. No, it definitely is. And like anyone who thinks that a male who's convicted or charged and looking at a long time is not going to identify as a woman.
So, hey, commercial break. You can support my work by joining the Rational Revolution on my Subscribestar, which is subscribestar.com/distortedlens. Or you can donate directly through my PayPal, which should be some link somewhere around here. I'll put it up. Just wanted to have a commercial break and make sure that you support my work. If you enjoy the work that I do, if you get any sort of entertainment, any sort of education, and you just want to support my work, you can do that by doing one of the things I just mentioned. So, back to the show.
They're crazy. Like, no wonder that Steve and Frank and Byron and, you know, like they've been in men's prisons for years. They haven't had sex. Of course they want in a woman's prison.
Yep.
Like, so it just,
Go
how
ahead.
people could use these excuses. And especially like the one that really gets me is, everyone says they want the trans women in women's prisons so that they're safer because men's prisons are dangerous. But then they turn around and try and tell us that women are no different than men and that they rape and that they do this and they do that too. And it's like, well, I thought you wanted them in women's prisons because they're safer. They can't
say
be
that
safer.
women rape? What? Who's saying that? The TRAs?
Yes.
Where are they getting that from? Every time whatever they're doing, the people on their team of insanity, they always project onto you. Like they always do the Darvo, Kafka trap stuff where, again, I think this stuff is just designed to drive you crazy and confuse you. And it's a total distortion and perversion of what you really see in front of you and what's happening. Like reality exists. It's so insane how many people actually believe this ideology versus the people that are being coerced and terrified into believing it. I think I gotta think that more people are going along with it because they're too terrified of being called names. Heaven forbid someone on the internet calls you some made up thing. I'm like, transphobe. I'm not afraid, and I don't think trans is real. So I'm like, this. Even your insult does nothing to me. Like that does not compute in my head because I'm not playing that game. And of course it always, has that effect, at least I'm not gonna say always, but I think a lot when it first happens to you. Someone called me a TERF and I was like, I had that feeling of like, oh my God. Like I know my truth that I stand in. I know the truth, but then I get that like a slur hurled at me, even though I didn't quite know what the hell it was at the time. But I saw that feeling of like, oh, I'm a bad person, or am I wrong here? Because that was a whole onslaught on Facebook. Because I posted about a man pretending to be a woman that raped his own child, that was getting taxpayers' money to be, to have I hate saying sex change if you can't change your sex, an operation to mutilate your body, and be put into women's prison. And I just posted on Facebook, and I was like, I was just asking people to think, and like I had this whole pile on. Of course, I had that feeling of, oh my God, what? Like these people came out of nowhere. But then the next day I was like, all right, this is bullshit. It's just such a lie. The whole TERF thing, ridiculous. Like, I don't even think these people that say that word, I don't even think they know what it means. Like, truly, it's dumb. Like, I'm not against. Go ahead.
And it gets thrown around for everything too. And what's so funny is when people are like, they agree with me about the prisons, but then they turn around and say, but you're walking a fine line of being a TERF. And I'm like, well, little do you know, since you agreed with me about prisons, you're a TERF.
Exactly. I don't understand. Well, what is the one thing that they find that you're being a little bit turfy about? It's so funny how people are agreeing with it on different levels too, like that, where they'll agree with some of you or what you say. I'm curious what part do they agree with and what part are they like, I don't know about that. Too truthful.
I think because I'm just too blunt and straightforward, and the fact that I don't use the language, right? So like, I won't say she, her. I won't say he, him. And then so they think that makes me a TERF. And it's like, well, no, it doesn't. Because we already agreed that this person is not a trans woman. So why would I then call them she, her? Like,
because it's mean. You're doing, that's really mean. And do the right thing, which is what is the phrase? Whatever. Be kind is do as I say. You can't make people believe things. Like if you want to believe whatever the hell you want to believe in, go right ahead. But I mean, this whole forcing people to partake in your delusion, which is gonna, I think, inevitably drive people insane as well, which then I think you're more susceptible to possibly identifying into that group in one way or another, you know. Even when this is random, but I was doing this Apple Fitness Plus thing. I'm not a fan of Apple anyway, and there was all like inclusion month or whatever, and it made me feel like I'm not included in this group if I'm not an ally, if I'm not trans, if I'm not a lesbian. And I'm like, well, I'm not any of those. I feel excluded. Isn't that funny that something that they make seemingly so inclusive, and yet I feel excluded? Like, I mean, I'm not like butthurt over not being included in this delusion thing, but it's still so hilarious and ironic that they preach so much inclusivity, but then let's exclude people that stand up for biological realities. It's like, it's a lie. Like, you're not speaking the truth.
Yeah. And it's same with when, so I ask people online, what's the definition of a woman? And they say anyone who identifies as one. And I'm like,
how's that
okay,
a definition?
But what is a woman? And then they say anyone who identifies with qualities that are traditionally related to women. And I'm like, okay, but I wear men's clothing, black, skateboarder stuff. Like, so does that mean I'm not a woman? And they're like, well, do you identify as one? And I'm like, okay, so anyone, no matter what, there's no way to ground this. There's no definition. Like,
you said it right there.
You can't define a word and give the word you're defining. Like, that doesn't work that way.
You can't exist in a realm of living in reality where you don't, you're existing on nothing that has foundation. Like, it's just a puff of genericness. Like, I mean, it's like built for insanity. Like, you have to have foundational things, and words have meaning, and describing something as, you know, that's that, I don't know, the whole, a woman is, you know, lipstick and long hair and ridiculousness. I'm like, no. I mean, you can have short hair, you can be bald, no lipstick. Oh, the classic argument, which I don't know if you know who Matt Walsh is, Mr. Conservative. I know a lot of people probably don't like him, but he was on Dr. Phil and pretty much mic dropped the whole trans thing, because he did the same thing. He's like, what is a woman? It was so beautiful to see, because he's not being hateful. He's just asking questions. And they have this whole like, oh my God, can you believe where I was going with that? Other than it was amazing to witness. Damn it, I forgot. I don't know. I'm going to remember, of course, when you start talking, I'm sure. Oh, they're just like, that. Yeah, it wasn't amazing. They're like, I love how they always do generalize it down to genital. What is the phrase? They always say that about, what is the phrase?
Yeah, genitals.
Yeah,
genitals.
We just narrow it down that we think we're obsessed with genitals. I'm like, biological reality exists. Whatever. I sound like a bigot. Whoops.
Yeah. I know, I watched that, and like he just kept saying, like, what's a woman? What is a woman? Like, you haven't told me yet.
Yeah, that guy's confusing. He's all, I don't know, whatever. They're the total distortion. And that other woman's like, why do you care so much? Why do you care so much? Because this has an effect on women's lives.
And it's the women that are like in poverty or, you know, abusive situations. It's like, it's not, you know, your liberal, like even conservative, but you know, if you have money, your life is pretty good. You're not in a homeless shelter, you know, you're not most of the time in prison, etc. Like, those aren't experiences that you have to deal with and probably aren't going to deal with in your life. So they don't care. Right? Like, they think they're doing a good thing because the poor trans women are so marginalized and victimized over everybody else in the whole world. Right?
I mean, they're given the most rights. I'm like, what rights do they not have? It's whatever. Sorry, not to cut you off.
So they don't even realize what's going on. They don't even know what it's like to be housed in a cell with a male. And it's like, these women are coming from like prostitution, drug addiction, sexual abuse, physical abuse, domestic violence. At the hands of men. And then you're locking them up with men. And now women are becoming pregnant. So we're taking women out for abortions. There's women in the halfway house pregnant. There's another woman who had a baby. So now
they're giving women condoms in California. I'm like, it's crazy to me. giving women condoms in California sounds pretty bigotry to me, because you're admitting there's some sort of biological reality going on here. So I wonder why you're doing that. Weird. If they really were going to buy into it, like they wouldn't be giving condoms, because then they would be like, I don't know. It's just like, I don't get it. Like that, it just breaks my brain. The irony there is hilarious. I mean, it's not hilarious. It's just dumb. I'm like, you're admitting that there's male and female, and that something happens when male and females come together and have sexual relations.
Well, yeah, they're giving the morning after pill at healthcare. And then there's also been like STI scares. So there was like an HIV scare, there was a herpes scare, because like, and in jail and prison, like you don't have a right to someone else's medical file. So you don't know who has what, right? So like these guys are coming in with HIV, Hep C, etc., and they're not disclosing that fact before they're sleeping with the women or raping the women, right? So then like they had to put some of them in seg, wait for blood work, etc. Like just craziness which is going on. Like it's now like they're in a gated community and the gates don't open, and they're allowing all these men in, and like the toxic relationships that are developing in there, and like these cliques that form around the men, and then it gives them all this power and control. They can literally do anything they want. And then when they do sexually assault or harass other women, they don't tell, because one, you don't rat in prison, but two, they're worried about the cliques of women that are forming around these
handmaidens.
Men.
Oh,
yes,
Lord Almighty,
handmaidens.
Insane.
Yes.
Even though they know, I mean, I guess I don't know. I guess they trap you so hard that you can't admit the reality of or maybe they think that the women are lying at that point. If you're have a stronghold of being a handmaiden and protecting these. Oh, it's insane. They're like what they're taking advantage of women's natural, beautiful empathy and sympathy that women more are inclined to have. And they're like weaponizing it. They know what they're doing. These people are, once you're fucked in the head in that way, like you open all these other doors of being evil and deception. God, it's insane. It's just like when men and women are housed together in general, like shit always goes down. Like someone gets rapey or women get jealous. Like, oh, it's no matter what, in any situation, there's reasons why we have separate quarters for the two sexes.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah, it is. And the women are just like, they're triggered too. They're like, we can't even walk from like the bathroom to our bedroom in our house coat. We don't feel comfortable. Like they're being cornered in the laundry room, pushed up against the wall, tongues being like shoved down their throats, like all sorts of stuff, right? And the guards don't do anything because like their hands are kind of tied, right? So if you're trans, you have all this power, and you're discriminating against me because I'm trans. So then they're putting in grievances and they're escalating it to the Human Rights Tribunal, right? But what they're doing is they're settling in mediation, which means that they're getting a payout. But also when you do mediation, you sign a contract, non-disclosure, right? So here they are. We don't get any info. They get paid off. And no real policy change is effective from that.
Wait, who gets paid off?
The trans prisoner. So like one of them.
Is that how it works? If they complain about something that, I'm offended or making up some lie, they wind up getting money from some sort of system?
Yes. So when you go to the Canadian Human Rights Tribunal, one of the remedies is being paid damages for mental anguish and discrimination and all that type of stuff.
What the hell is money? What is money going to solve? Shouldn't you nip it this is obvious. You know what the answer is. You nip it in the bud and be like, okay, if this person's causing this issue, I don't know, or like mental therapy. Those are the obvious answers. I guess money is the easier route. What am I talking about?
Well, then like the tribunals and stuff are all captured as well. Like everything's gender identity ideology, right? Mm-hmm. So like all they do is blame it on the fact that they're transgender. I'm being punished. I'm in segregation and they won't give me makeup. and then they put in a grievance and they escalate that grievance, because the grievance is an internal complaint avenue for corrections. And then you have your 3 levels, and if it doesn't get satisfied, then you can escalate it and put in your complaint as like a human rights, as long as it falls under the protected grounds. And
what is not? Like, I'm curious what they would possibly ever say no to then, if you're identifying as trans. Because then, I mean, what is the thing that they could possibly say no to? Is there anything?
I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna read. Go ahead.
That's what's happening, and they're even in the men's prisons. There are some who have been denied transfers, and what they're doing is they're putting themselves in segregation, which is enforcing like Madamus. I probably said that wrong, but it's a writ, which is to make the courts intervene and say you have a duty and you need to get your act together, basically.
Who is this in the men's prison? You said women identifying as men?
No, they're males in the men's prison who have been denied transfers.
Yeah.
And they're fighting to try to get the transfer decision reversed so that they can transfer. And some of those are denied transfer due to overriding health and safety concerns, like the security of the facility or the fact that they're a sex offender, etc.
I thought so pedophiles are allowed to be transferred into women's prisons, but not sex offenders or something? Like, where's the line?
I don't know. They did let Michael Williams into the women's prison in BC, and he raped and murdered a 13-year-old Indigenous girl.
Good Lord Almighty.
Yeah.
I'm going to read another one of those incarcerated women in Canada snippets. A male prisoner who admittedly brags to friends about playing the system, pretending to be a woman, targeted me along with countless others in an attempt to have sexual relations. Because the sexual harassment was so insistent, I stopped going to get my medication because I wanted to avoid him. Due to how uncomfortable he made me feel, I would avoid any situation where I could possibly encounter him, including going on walks, attending events, and various programs, recreation, and activities, which is just so sad. Like, the one enjoyment you could possibly get out of your day, maybe going for a walk or recreation or whatever activities being shut off. I mean, no wonder why people are being driven to suicide. I cannot fathom these situations, all because a man does whatever the fuck he wants.
Well, and what they're doing is so the women that are like developmentally delayed, have like mental health, have some sort of disabilities, right? Because we do have a few women that are like 12,
mentally.
So So what they do is they prey on them. It's so crazy. So a lot of them are in what we call structured living environment that has more like a behavior counselor. The guards go in there more. There's more supervision, right? Because there's a lot of mental health.
Yeah.
So when the trans get in trouble and can't be on the compound, they put them in the SLE with the most vulnerable women on compound. Like, it's insane.
What's a SLE?
We call it the SLE. It's the structured living environment.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
It's the mental health portion. But there's so much mental health right now that they actually had to turn House 5 into another mental health house. So they have 2 sides to the SLE, and then they have a whole house. So mental health is escalating. Which is not surprising because the prisons have been on restrictions for the last 2 years. They've been in cohorts. So the compound is separated. There's cohort 1 and cohort 2. So you're not even seeing your friends.
Because of the COVID crap?
Yeah. So cohort 1 can't mingle with cohort 2. You're only allowed out on different days, right? So they'll let cohort 1 out maybe like Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and then they sanitize like Wednesday and then let the other cohort out. So there's like 4 days where you're not allowed to go to school or work. And then there's no programming or volunteers. So no Narcotics Anonymous, no Alcoholics Anonymous, none of that. And there has been an increase in drug use in the prisons. And of course, because there's no programming, there's no relapse prevention, there's no nothing.
exactly. So are they wearing masks in prison?
I think some of them can, but they're not.
Yeah,
No,
I mean, I
like
can imagine.
my friends aren't.
Yeah. Are they forcing the prisoners to get the job?
So at Grand Valley here in Ontario, it was a choice, but they did send around a prisoner to try to talk everybody into getting it.
Mhm.
They've had 3 doses in there. I have heard reports that, like in Saskatchewan, that they're doing forced vaccination,
Mhm.
which is crazy because like they're pretty much all Indigenous, and you're forcing vaccination. That's like what, like the forcing sterilization on Indigenous women. Like
Yep.
that was brought up when the person reported it to me, and yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Like,
So you think the job is sterilizing? Because I mean, I do, for sure.
well, that's not what I meant, but
Oh, okay.
sure. I meant the Canadian government sterilized Indigenous women for years and
Yeah,
years,
yeah, yeah.
and have all the way up until, I don't know, they're probably still doing it.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? Like that was
Mhm.
forced. That was a medical
Yeah.
procedure forced on them. And now
Exactly.
they're again forcing another medical procedure on them.
Yeah, I don't think any sort of forced medical procedure is going to be anything good for your good or anyone's good. It seems quite obvious if you have to force it.
Yes. No, I'm not in for the forced anything.
Yeah.
Um I totally like I've been watching like the trucker convoy for the last
Yeah,
two
yeah, yeah.
days,
Yep.
and my heart
Saw that
is
too.
just so happy to see that.
Me too. It's awesome. I saw other countries do that as well. Maybe New Zealand, like months ago. They're so helpless as well. It's so insane. But I don't know what the fuck happened with Canada in the past, I don't know, 3 years. Trudeau is so gross, such a horrible liar. Just,
He's ruined Canada. Like it's
uh-huh.
just been, and it was so crazy like when I got out of prison because like so much had changed. It was just like a culture shock to me.
For
Like
sure.
I remember they released me and I had to take a cab to the Kitchener bus station to catch a bus from Kitchener to Toronto. But there was a 3 hour layover in Toronto for my bus from Toronto to North Bay.
Mhm.
So I was outside having a smoke and someone came up to me and they're like, "Can I use your lighter?" And I'm like, "Sure." And then they pulled out 2 joints and tried to hand me one and lit the other. And I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm going to go to jail." Right? Because like weed became legal while I was in, but I still didn't know what the
Oh,
rules
okay,
were.
okay. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Huh. When did they do that? Was that like
I
before?
was
Huh.
I was in
Okay.
so
Interesting.
2016 or
Hmm.
2017, 2018, somewhere around
Gotcha.
there.
Yeah. Gosh, I feel like if there's anything else you want to talk about, I'd be more than happy to highlight whatever you want to bring to light, really.
Yeah, so one of the really important things that I think is important, anyways, is that we have like 100 years of prison reform, and we have like just over 30 years with women's corrections.
Mhm.
And with this new transfer policy, that is all at risk now. We're
Mm.
going backwards. So with women's prisons, we only had one in Canada, and it was called Prison for Women, and it was in Kingston, Ontario. And actually, women were incarcerated at Kingston Penitentiary, which is the men's prison,
Hmm.
and the men built the prison for women across the street.
Hmm.
So the women moved into that after the male prisoners built it. And there was a bunch of inquiries in there, and people were advocating to have it closed. They said it wasn't fit for bears. And within a 3 year period, 7 women committed suicide, all but one were Indigenous. They didn't fare well in an environment built for men. And there was a lot of human rights violations with women in prison. And it led to a task force on federally sentenced women, and they put out a report called Creating Choices. They built the 6 prisons for women across Canada, and they have lower security measures. They have cottage style houses. They have more privileges. It's less restrictive, etc. We have a mother-child program now. So we raise our children in prison, full-time up to age 4, part-time after that because they're in school.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have like weapons like guns. We don't have guard towers, spotlights, like none of that type of stuff. So what trans rights activists are saying is that these transfers of males that identify as women should be treated as women. Therefore, CSC should be able to facilitate them in the women's prisons, and if need be, they can increase the security. So we're going to end up losing our women's prisons.
Yeah.
They're going to go back to environments built for men, where our mother-child program will be in jeopardy because you cannot raise children in an environment like that.
Yeah.
Also, we don't have enough room in our women's prisons for them. So where do we put the women when the beds are gone? So then they're going to start building more prisons. And if they build more prisons, they have to find more people to fill them, right? We don't want them to build more prisons. I don't understand, and I do understand, I shouldn't say that because this isn't about safety, it's about validation, right? They have the room in men's prisons with wings, pods, ranges that they can develop their transgender wing in the men's facility. They can be separated from the rest of the facility, but still utilize the gym, the kitchen, the programs, the church, everything, right? Because they do this in provincial. Women are housed in a jail that was built for men, but we're given a wing or a range and we're kept separate from the men. So they can do it. They have the room. Then they don't have to build more prisons. And if they built a transgender wing for each of their regions, then that would be taken care of. And then we're not downloading the risk of male violence from men's prisons onto women, right? But they don't want to address the male violence in men's prisons, right? Because that's why we want to transfer. We want to transfer because they're not safe because of men. So with these transgender wings, they could be your alphabet wings, and then they can protect more people than the select few that they're trying to protect, because there are trans women who live as women in men's institutions that do not want to transfer. So nothing has been done to protect them. Gay men are at just as much risk in men's prisons as trans women. Nothing has been done for them. So realistically, the best idea would be to build these wings and protect more men instead of risking women and only choosing a select few. Because we house all the trans men in women's prisons as well, because men's prisons aren't safe for trans men, and trans men would be females who identify as women, right?
Yeah. As men, Yeah, wow, well said. I mean, are there anyone that's advocating for that or asking for that or rallying to make that possibly come to fruition?
I'm trying.
Yeah. Good for you. I mean,
But
I know it just makes too much sense at this point, because the same thing can be said about high school locker rooms, which they're dealing with here in Texas, of all places. I mean, it's going on everywhere. Men pretending to be women in the locker room. I mean, people are like, oh, they should just create a third locker room for transgender people. I'm like, that's not what they want. That's not what they want at all. It's not validating for them to be able to enter the taboo or you're not supposed to, women places. I mean, it must be total euphoria, Bonerville, to be able to enter women's areas. I mean, there's disgusting, countless photos and fetishy stuff, of men going into women's bathrooms and videotaping and photographing. There's a whole porn thing. I wish I never even looked up or researched, but goes in hand with this trans stuff, jacking off and just producing extremely sexual, putting suction cup dildos on the floor and having at it in the women's bathroom, just because woo-wee, what euphoria. And I mean, it's so sexual to them. It's a fetish.
It's like people, I don't get this because I was born in 1988. So I grew up on like Unsolved Mysteries, America's Most
Oh yeah,
Wanted.
totally same.
I grew up on like a million different crime documentaries. Like, I don't understand how people could forget about those. Like, they're not fake, they're real. These people exist. Like, and you don't know who is a predator, who is not. And by looking at the stats, there are more predators on the outside in society than there is inside.
Yeah.
You know, like, I didn't know that my neighbor was a pedophile, not until he got arrested for it. How long was he doing it before? You know, like, these rapists and pedophiles are our brothers, our fathers, our cousins, our neighbors, our bosses. They are literally everybody. And they're very good at putting on a mask and pretending that they're not who they are.
Totally.
Like, I know how to manipulate and lie. I'm a drug addict. I know how to be whatever I need to be to gain what I want.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
And
I
people
have that.
forget about that.
Yeah, I have that in my family. Addict, and these people they just grow and learn from being addicted to substances how to manipulate, and on a level that, I mean, even people that probably would not think that would happen to them would be taken advantage of. I mean, these people are experts. Like, you become an expert at getting your way, whatever that may be. I mean, the whole intervention TV show, which is kind of fucked up. Actually, it's very fucked up that they put it on television, because I had an eating disorder for 6 years and I learned tactics on eating disorder stuff from intervention. So it's like, I'm torn, because I'm like, it's like, I think it can be helpful in how to address someone in your family or whatnot. But then it also is that double-edged sword thing where you can learn how to manipulate and or how to function in that addiction or mental delusion or whatever. You know, the eating disorder thing is so similar to the trans thing, which is why when I first started researching the trans stuff, I mean, I was like, oh, I know what this is. Like, it's so similar. Just this, you know, the body dysmorphia, and it's the same. It's so similar. I want to say it's the same thing. Because you know, you look yourself in the mirror, look at old photos, and I'm like, I thought I was fat then. And I'm like, I'm not fat at all. It's such a lie. And it's so all in your head. And I was alone, and I had this whole online community of pro-Anna shit, and I had no friends. And I'm like, oh, my family doesn't understand me, and they didn't know how to handle it at the time. You just get wrapped up into this. I mean, the internet is absolutely making this stuff explode, and I have to wonder how. I mean, take the phone away from these kids that are like, I'm non-binary, and get them out of public school. You know, I've heard of people dissenting and stepping away from it because they don't have that indoctrination. And like, well, why would you not want to be a part of this progressive, cool kid? I mean, it's so appealing. Like, I totally get why kids are falling for this. It's like, it's colorful. Like, I love colors. Colorful, different. Like, it's an ultimate act of rebellion. And I think most kids go through some rebellious stage, especially if you have childhood trauma, which I think most of us do. I think so many. I mean, this is like a literal magnet. Like, I can't imagine having childhood trauma or not being in the cool kids club, like a cheerleader or preppy or something, and then being like, well, why would I not join these people? I have an immediate, you know, love bombing crew. It's such a trap. It's so sad.
It is, and it's marketed to children as well. They use glitter and rainbows and unicorns, and like it's
I literally have a unicorn tattoo, dude. Like, not that I mean, it's, if I was born, you know, in the 90s, I guess, I think, I mean, most women, like, you know, a lot of girls grow up with not being girly girl, and maybe they have brothers and they just play in the dirt. Like you said, you know, wearing cargo shorts or not wearing girly. I never liked the color pink or any of that shit. I think it's more just because I thought that the society looked down on that, and I was like, I don't want to identify as like girly girl stuff. You know, these people are women or young girls. I don't know, something about it. I just didn't want to be. I thought it was a weakness. I thought like being girly girl back then was a weakness, which is insane to think back on and realize that. But just because you don't wear the conventional, typical, it's not even typical, I think, though, you know, womanly stereotypical crap does not mean you're magically a boy. It's so dumb. I really, really do think Facebook next door and these mommy socializing spaces is such a trap to be like, oh, well, my kid is trans too. Look, they just wanted to play in the dirt. Like,
yeah,
it's insane. I know I'm we're preaching to the choir here, but it's good to vent. I mean, I literally had to step away from this stuff because it was really affecting me. So you're kind of one of the women that I am jumping back in with, because I've always been interested in what's been going on in the women's prisons, and it's gut-wrenching. I literally lost my best friend in California over this thing of it was January 1st last year. California signed some bill where they allow gender identity, people, men, to be housed in women's prisons. And I tagged my best friend at the time in this Twitter thread, and it was all these gender critical women and whatnot being like, this is insane. And I knew she wasn't going to likely respond to it because she'd probably get jumped on, not in a way where we attack, but having too much truth going on where she didn't want to get involved. So she DM'd me and was like, hey, I don't know how Twitter works, which is total lies, which is whatever. She was okay with men being housed in women's prisons. And I'm like, I can understand having friends that don't have the same political beliefs or whatever, or we don't believe this or that, but like throwing yourself under the bus as a woman, and also I'm a woman, I can't. This is where I draw the line. And I asked her, I was like, can we just talk over the phone? Because I don't like doing this texting thing. And I never got a response. So, it was literally because she was like, they have feelings, and she's just so, it's unfortunate. Yeah. I couldn't even get my word in. I'm like, what are you afraid of? Like, why can't we talk this out? We can't even talk this out.
I've gotten fortunate because, I've been talking about this since June 2019. Mm-hmm. So basically anyone that didn't like it's already left. But I had a lot of people that didn't agree with me, but stayed on my Facebook and learned. And then
That's good.
They're now in agreement with me, which was really cool to see that happen. It took a while, but amazing. I was persistent. Yeah.
Yep. I've had a couple of, I'd say one follower I'm thinking of that she wasn't rude, but she definitely was kind of butting heads with me with the whole gender ideology thing. And I would get annoyed and angry, but I'm like, there's no reason to block this person because they weren't offending me and they weren't being a troll. And I feel like she's woken up through what I've been posting and whatnot, which is beautiful and amazing. And that's great. That's great that these people have this curiosity. And I guess in a way, social media can have that benefit. Because another one of my friends, we're not really friends anymore, obviously, but she still looks at my stories obsessively. And I'm like, go ahead, have at it. I'm not mad at it at all. I mean, it kind of sucks because I'm like, just talk to me. But, it's difficult, blocking people back when I was in doing and all this. Because I was just like, I don't want to block them because then they may not be able to see the other side. It's just, that fine line of how trolly is this person being where I just need to block them. You know what I mean? I'm like, if I block them, they're not going to be able to possibly awaken to the truth.
Yeah. And I noticed a lot lately that, so not a lot of left wing, none, would even post about the prisons or gender identity, etc., because they go along with it. Yeah. So we've been using a lot of right wing and conservative news sources to do this, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, they're also the same news sources that are no more lockdowns, no more mandates, etc. So all of those people, the freedom fighters or the anti-lockdown people, all of them are using those sources now because they realize they can't trust CTV or CBC or Global, right? So they're all being awakened to the gender identity stuff, which is good because we've broken through the echo chamber. So because the things they believe about the government and COVID, they're awake enough to believe what we're saying and don't doubt us. So it's been pretty cool.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and I'm loving seeing Matt Walsh, talk more about or he has fun with it, which is hilarious to see. But because it's just funny how I'm like, oh, Vanessa Vokey was talking about this YouTuber guy for months, and now Matt's doing it. And I'm like, have at it, dude. I'm not mad. I'm not like, because I know there's that thing of like women being like, oh, we've been saying this for years. You now a man saying it. I'm like, I don't care, man. At least, some dude who has a lot of followers is, waking up his audience. I'm not mad. I'm like, have at it, dude. The more people talking about this and speaking truth into it, I think it just starts to shatter these lies. It does suck that it's typically conservative stuff, because then they'll go, oh, okay, you're a Trumper or whatever. Of course, liberal, left people ain't going to touch this.
It's true too. Like, I went to a freedom rally in May because the People's Party of Canada leader was going to be there. And I wanted to tell him about prisons. Well, didn't all these people jump on me? How dare I speak to him? And he's this, that, and the other thing. And I'm like, I don't care what he is. I'm going to tell whoever will listen to me about prisons, and they can do with whatever they want to do. I'm not working with anyone. I'm getting the information out. And they were the only political party in Canada for the election that put out a bulletin about the trans stuff. Conservatives didn't touch it. Liberals, NDP, Green, Bloc, Quebec, none of them.
Wait, so what is this party? I guess in that whole line of like left, right, where would they fall? What's it called?
They would fall on the right.
Okay, but I guess they're different from the typical conservatives. Right?
Yeah, the conservatives are pretty much liberal now.
Really? In Canada?
Well, they're not, but like we feel like it because there's no opposition. They're not opposing anything. There's been like no word from them.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And they're following along with everything that Justin Trudeau's doing. So essentially there is no conservative party in Canada.
Wow. Yeah, I'm clueless about Canada's politics and whatnot. Can't say I'm surprised. People are just, again, living in that fear of, I think a lot of it's losing money, and people just don't want their cushy lives to be disrupted and be uncomfortable with, standing in what you know to be true. They'd rather live in the stream of the lie because it's comfortable and don't want to rock the boat. I don't want to be uncomfortable or have someone say this about me. I'm like, who cares? Who cares? The truth. We have to live in a world where reality means something, and we can all agree on this word or this thing meaning that. You can't live in a world where there's no foundation and words have no meaning. That's literal chaos.
Yeah.
It's like they're trying to make utopia or something, or I was going to say make everyone happy, which is not even true. I just, again, love how the gender ideology is all about inclusivity. Like, that's one of the biggest freaking lies. You exclude women, I don't like calling myself a TERF because I'm just like, I don't play that game, but it's totally excluding stuff, obviously. Like, heaven forbid you're white, Christian, conservative, male or female, like, uncool, not included.
Yeah.
So it's not inclusive. It's a lie. Well, Miss Heather, where can the people of the internet find you, if you want to talk about that or include that?
So I'm Heather Mason on Twitter. My handle is Mason134211F. It's actually my FPS number from prison.
Oh, wow.
That's how you identify me in the correctional system. And I'm also on Facebook under Heather Mason as well. And I'm a founding member of Canadian Women's Sex-Based Rights. You can find us on Twitter and Facebook as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on and shedding light on your past and the prison system in Canada and in general. I thank you a lot for your time, and God bless you and what you do, and helping, just being that listening ear too for women in prison. And I think it's so important. I think has a really big impact, and that absolutely matters. So thank you so much for doing that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, if you got anything out of this video, if you've enjoyed my podcast at any point in time, if you learn anything, show your support by donating to my PayPal. It would mean the world to me. I really appreciate all the support, donations, and purchases from my shop on my website, which is lindsayplatoshinart.com/shop. You can buy some handmade goodies. So go shop, shop, shop. Fill them baskets. As always, thank you for supporting my work and take it easy.